You mentioned those quarterbacks. I saw Kenny Pickett in person for one half last year. I saw him on TV as everyone else did. But I've seen Malik Willis work out. I've been to Liberty practices. I was blown away by him then. It feels like at the end of the regular season in college football, it was Pickett's going to be the guy, and then maybe we'll see who takes Willis. Mm-hmm. And those guys have flipped. What has Willis done in the last 3 months to change that narrative?
Well, I don't know if they've flipped it. It really comes down to who you're talking to. I mean, I can have a conversation with a general manager from one team, and they'll say we've got Malik Willis 1, Pickett 2, Ritter 3, Corral 4, Howell 5. And then I could talk to another team, and they'll say, well, we actually kind of like Ritter the most of these quarterbacks. And then another team would say Pickett. And then another team, I've had one team say that they're debating between Corral and Ritter as the number 1 quarterback in the class. So the opinions are all over the board in the league, and I think that's part of the intrigue in this draft is there are only a few teams in the first round that could legitimately take a quarterback. And when I look at it, then in the second round, there are some teams that might move around. But it could be a long night for Willis and for Pickett if things shake out like you mentioned with Baker Mayfield. But for Willis specifically, anytime you have a player who has the strongest arm in the class, and right away when he's drafted, he's the 3rd most dangerous runner at the quarterback position behind Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I truly believe that. So it's a heck of a jumping off point, right? But he's still just a 2-year starter at Liberty, transferred from Auburn where he was going to be 3rd in the depth chart, and there was talks about maybe even moving him out to wide receiver as an offensive weapon. So this guy, as Hugh Freeze has told me, he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet, and it's not his fault. He's a smart guy, very personable, great human being. I mean, everyone loves him coming out of the interviews with him. But he hasn't had a lot of experience in a pro-style offense with that kind of verbiage. It's going to be a culture shock for him when he gets to the NFL. So going to a place like Pittsburgh, where you've got Mitchell Trubisky in there and could bridge a gap for a year or two while Malik is learning how to play the NFL quarterback position, I think would be perfect for him.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said for going old school and learning under a guy as opposed to throwing him in there like everyone wants to do these. You mentioned Matt Corral. We were on the SEC Network. He fascinates me, and he fascinates me because of his backstory, and he's the worst, and no one wants to deal with him, and there's this incident. And at Ole Miss, he's a loose cannon, but then the guy that we saw playing last year was a great quarterback. And I've talked to him so many times. What are you hearing about Matt Corral when you're talking to NFL front office personnel?
Yeah, I mean, one GM said he's kind of like Braveheart. You know, if you're not with him on his side, like you can't stand him. It drives you crazy. But everyone around him, just like, I'll run through a wall for this guy. And he's a winner and a leader. And he'll carry the ball 30 times in the game if he has to. He did it at Ole Miss. His play style he's got to temper it because he doesn't have a big frame. He's not built like a Mike linebacker from the waist down like Malik Willis is, and durability is going to be a concern with him. So that's one reason you could see him fall out of the first round. The other is just going from that RPO heavy style of offense, and the fact that throws 20 yards down the field, 20 plus yards down the field, his accuracy really dropped off. Those are two of the big concerns with Corral. And then, what are you getting in terms of the maturity and who is he and does he know himself and what he wants to be? And those are questions legitimately that scouts and general managers have brought up to me. So he is a big-time wild card because you look at his short to intermediate accuracy, his mobility at the position, his snap release. He has the quickest release of all these quarterbacks. The mobility to extend inside the pocket and outside the pocket. There's a lot to like there, and that's why he's going to be a top 50 pick. I'm not convinced that he's going to go in the first round.
All right, so those are the guys who throw it. Todd McShay joining us to talk about the NFL draft. Those are the guys who throw it, and there's the guys who catch it. And I'm old enough to remember when the idea of Alabama being wide receiver U would get you laughed at any sports bar. But Jameson Williams, I love Metchie. I spent a lot of time with that kid. Unfortunately, I have stood on sidelines with both of them injured in championship games, just in December and January.
Yep.
What's the book on those guys? And what's the approach to players who are overcoming injury that, if they weren't, you'd probably plug and play with them as soon as the fall started?
Yeah, if you asked me after both of their injuries, I would have said Metchie might fall to the third. Jameson's going to go late in the first. But it's amazing what's going on with medicine today and how quickly these guys can recover from knee injuries. And Jameson's ahead of schedule. And when you put on the tape, this is what happens. You get in the draft rooms, and you got scouts who have been following them all year. You get the medical team that's giving their input, and then you've got the coaches who were in such a bubble in the NFL all year long. But now the position coaches are going back, and they're getting some input watching the tape. It's like if I go watch tape of Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, Chris Olave, his teammate, Drake London, all these top receivers. Jameson's the best receiver. I mean, you have to be blind not to see that on tape. So if you're getting reports medically that are coming back that are saying he might be ready for training camp, and that's what some people have come out and said. Well, it remains to be seen. But if you're confident that even if you're going to get him at full strength 5-6 weeks into the season, I'm taking that guy because this is a 5-year investment in the first round. You get 4 years and then that 5th-year option. So I think he's the best in this class, and I think receiver coaches are going to see that. But it depends on what your situation is. Is it win now, or do you have to win to save your job in year one? What is the situation? But Jameson Williams, to me, is the best receiver in this class because of vertical ability and the ability after the catch. He's the closest thing to Tyreek Hill that this draft class has to offer. Metchie was the dirty work guy. I mean, I love him. And I think I said maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, I would have said 3rd round. He's going to go in the 2nd. He's too good of a player. Really good hands, knows how to get off the press. He does, if they need it 3rd and 7, they're going to Metchie, not necessarily Jameson Williams. When they need the big play, they go to Jameson. And Metchie was so critical to what they did. Jameson's the star, but Metchie had the 92 catches this past year. So I just like his play, and I think he's really good after the catch, too, a very underrated part of his game. So he's going to be a really good number 3 starter in the league, and I think he's going to be pretty much ready to go.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.